Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley. Hello and welcome to the WP Builds podcast yet again. This is episode 68, entitled GeneratePress Sites is going to speed up your site building with Tom Usborne and Paul Lacey. It was published on the 22nd of March 2018. My name's Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.com, a small web development agency based in the north of England, and I'll be joined a little bit later by David Wormsley from davidwormsley.com. Today, in the discussion section, right at the start, we're going to be talking about how to find enthusiasm in our work. You know, those times when you're feeling a little bit low, and where do you go to encourage yourself and keep yourself going? After that, we'll be talking to Tom Usborne and Paul Lacey about GeneratePress Sites. I'll talk about that in just a moment. And finally, I'm going to talk about the Memcached vulnerability, which was exposed a few weeks ago online. It's very short, little ending fact about the craziness that has caused. Please go to wpbuilds.com and find the episode that you like and click on the buttons below. We always like an iTunes review. 5 stars is very, very commendable. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciated. If you go to wpbuilds.com/Facebook group. Ooh, good idea for a domain name. You can join our Facebook group. If you go to /subscribe, you can get yourself on our newsletter, which we try to keep, to the point and not too spammy. And /advertise if you'd like to advertise on the network. Now, if you go to wpbuilds.com/win at the moment, you've got a chance to win one of 3 lifetime licenses for Wallace Inline for Beaver Builder. Bradley Kirby was on the podcast a few months ago, probably now, talking about the inline editor that he'd created for Beaver Builder. He's giving away 3 lifetime licenses, so if you fancy doing that and you're a Beaver Builder user and you fancy editing on the actual spot where your text is positioned, go there. It's going to be different from the version that Beaver Builder shipped, with more granular permissions based around user access and all of that kind of stuff. And finally, the folks over at Main WP have offered us a 25% discount on their licenses, any of them, including the lifetime one. I don't know that this code is going anywhere else, so please use it. The offer code that you use at the checkout is WPBuilds, all capital, no spaces, and it should get you 25% off. So we would thank them very dearly for doing that for us. And I know that some of you have taken us up on that offer and are using it as of now. So brilliant. Okay, we'll go over to Tom now and Paul Lacey talking about the new initiative they've got, GeneratePress Sites, which hopefully, if you're a GeneratePress user or have been thinking about it, it's a top quality WordPress theme. We would encourage you to go over there and download the free version and play with it and have a look at some of the new stuff which is going to be coming online. I don't think it's out there just yet on the date that this podcast was released, but GeneratePress Sites is something that Tom and Paul have been doing to speed up your workflow. So please settle back and enjoy that a little bit later. And now I'll hand you over to David Wormsley and I so that we can natter at you for about 20 minutes or so. Thanks very much for listening. As always, much appreciated.
And today's topic is how to find enthusiasm in our work. So I think Nathan and I have talked a little bit about productiveness and efficiency and motivation. So this one we're talking about, and I had to look this up, what enthusiasm means. It means intense and eager enjoyment. So how we get that in our work, Nathan?
Good grief. Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I think on the whole, I'm quite an enthusiastic person. I think I've got a bit of, get up and go and all of that kind of stuff. But then I suppose this question is also begging the opposite, isn't it? What is it that kills enthusiasm or destroys our confidence or whatever? But very simply, having discussed this with you before we got on the recording, I think for me, enthusiasm comes from, there's a number of reasons, but one of the first ones is something new. If a task is something that I've never done before and it's not too frightening, if it's not some task that I know is going to be fraught with problems. But if it's something reasonably new, I like that challenge. And I know you're the same, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. John, I was just saying, wasn't I? There was a great thing. People can look this up. There's a TED talk by Daniel Pink called Drive. And it's worth looking at because it just says about what motivates us in our work. And it really is about learning, more than financial rewards.
Yeah, I think that's the word, isn't it? Rather than new, it's learning.
Yeah.
And I do kind of, if something is terribly difficult, and I can see that actually stymies me. That really sort of puts the brakes on me and makes me sort of lock up a bit. And I get a bit of fear about doing something which is, very new and I have to learn a lot. It's not often these days that happens in my work life. So yeah, something where there's a challenge, I've got to learn something and it's new. I find that stuff tremendously enjoyable. And to be honest with you, I would say that anybody that's working on the web and building websites, that must be, I would have thought, a criteria because it's constantly changing. It's one of the things that when I say what I do to people, they sort of, they say, but do you ever like feel you've got it? And you say, well, no, it's constantly changing. And what was correct last year is largely incorrect this year.
Yeah. Do you think, actually, because we didn't discuss how we were laying this out, so maybe, do you think we could be saying what actually sort of gets us enthusiastic? And then there's the obvious counterpart to it that kind of is the opposite, which is doing mundane stuff, I guess.
Yes. So that has always been a feature of my life, actually. The repetitive tasks switch me off, I would say, much more than most normal people. It really is a feature of my life and a thing that I need to get a hold of, I would say. If something becomes a little bit repetitive, monotonous, I quickly find something else to do. Which can be quite damaging in terms of the business. There's an awful lot of stuff in my life apart from websites and this podcast, kids and house and DIY and family and all of that kind of stuff. And if the task in front of me at work is repetitive and monotonous, I very quickly find other things in life to do, like paint a shelf or, go and sit down with the kids, that sort of thing, which I would imagine is not the mark of a successful person.
No, I think, you know what, there's the mundane, that really gets me as well. One thing that frustrates me or kills the enthusiasm is when stuff go wrong unexpectedly. And sometimes it's a weird thing because there's like a loop almost, because when you're under pressure or something, and I guess this is worse if you're under financial pressure, but something goes wrong on the project and it takes more time to get it done and you didn't expect to have to spend that time, it's really, really frustrating. But then on other occasions, something that goes wrong and you learn something from it becomes one of the biggest joys because you've just overcome and you've been given this challenge which you've managed.
Yeah, the moment at the end when it's all finished is just a tremendous. I really like that feeling. I am visibly buoyant. Everybody around me can sort of see the difference in my personality. Whereas if things are going wrong, I close in a little bit and become probably less communicative. But also I'm what's the word? I can do things to the exclusion of all others. If something really has got my fancy, I can block everything else out and kind of ignore the real world and just hunker down and spend hours and have to be told to get off the computer. I expect that's the case for a lot of us as well.
Yes.
I can get really enthusiastic about utterly ridiculous things and just carry on for ages.
Do you take these problems to sleep with you?
I would say no, but I think the reality is yes, I probably do. I can worry about certain things. So an example might be when a site goes down and I don't know why, like a white screen of death or something along those lines. And I know that I can't fix it now because I'm too exhausted. That sort of stuff really can panic me tremendously because I feel that I'm letting people down. Whereas I've certainly met other people who just say, look, I'll just fix it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. What about you?
Yes.
Do you worry about
Yeah,
stuff?
so well, not so much worry, I guess, but I do find that if I got a problem, I take it to bed with me, and it goes. I feel when I get up in the morning like that's all I've dreamt.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's not the case. But yeah.
Do you lose? I mean, one of the things that comes into my mind is the fact that I host websites. That can be a killer in terms of sleep, because things can go wrong at any time of the day or night. And if it goes wrong just before you're turning in to bed, you either fix it or you go to bed and worry. And sometimes things are not so easy to fix. So those kind of things can get to me and cause me to have far less enthusiasm. Where else do you find enthusiasm then?
Well, for me, I keep talking to my wife about how blessed I feel we are because of I get really excited about the freedom that this job gives us. I can work when I like most of the time, and I've set it up to try and keep that as best as I can, and where I like. And this is just, honestly, I get so excited every so often. I sound like a fool, really, but I cannot believe I wander around with a laptop, which is my work, my TV, my music center, library, university, telephone, social meetings place, everything. It's all of these things. And, we're both from the same small sort of town area, aren't we?
Yeah.
And, I grew up in the 80s. So this just seems still amazing to me.
It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing, and it's so easy for me to say these words and for everybody to listen to these words. But when you actually think about this little tiny object, and the fact that it's connected to other similar tiny little objects, and it can be your career, and in your case, it can be your career in a completely different part of the world each week. And here we are using those little tiny objects to create a podcast, which is distributed to anybody who would like to listen to it. It's phenomenal.
Isn't it just? And it's just what keeps making me think, I just don't want to be doing anything else in my life but this, and that's a real prime one for me. Just this miracle.
So so you get enthusiasm just from the reality that you're able to do this. Yeah, we are very, very lucky. I completely agree. Yeah, that's a wonderful thought. So where else do you get enthusiasm from? Particular people, or is the reverse true? Possibly, do certain people curb your enthusiasm for reasons that we might go into a little bit later? Is there any particular people who make you excited and enthusiastic?
Well, this is going to sound terrible. I love the fact that I don't have to deal with people. At least I deal with them on my own terms. I mean, I am lucky that I've got somebody mostly dealing with the client, and I do the looking after the site, more the sort of technical end of it. So, so my joy is the fact that I only choose the company of the people I like, and the work isn't so much connected with it, which wasn't the case when I was an employee.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful, because the flip side is obviously true. The people that you sometimes have to deal with in this job can really destroy your enthusiasm. If you've got a very helpful client who's just a nice person, let's say, that can really turn a difficult project, one that might keep you awake at night, into a pleasure. Because they're thoughtful, they're helpful, they understand the roadblocks, and they realise that you're not their employee, that you're, somebody that's working perhaps on an hourly rate or something like that, but they're not there to yell at you when things go wrong. But the opposite is, of course, true. That when you get somebody who has all those characteristics and treats you like a poor employee and gets quite cross on the phone because things haven't worked out exactly as they wanted, it makes things take 10 times longer. Have you, in the days when you were dealing more with clients, did you ever notice that in yourself, that you would maybe deliberately or subconsciously drag your heels because of the nature of the interaction with the client?
Yes. You know what? I mean, I found the ones, I mean, I still do some work, when I'm talking to the client, but I think it's my fault, to be honest. And I think, the way I've been going recently has made it easier, where I say, look, we work together, and, we work in a set time and stuff like that. It kind of makes it a lot of a sort of shared experience, rather than before, where I used to try and this is another one of my things that curbs my enthusiasm, is setting goals, which I was talking to you about before. If I set a goal for myself, it's like a prison. And I used to do that to clients, want them to be clear about what we're doing up front. And that made me quite inflexible. So when they were wanting to change my mind, I used to get really annoyed because they weren't playing my game.
Right. Yeah.
This is it. This is our brief, and so I changed a lot on that. That's made me get more enthusiastic about working with clients, because I feel that if they share the responsibility for what we can get done in a day, and they understand that, we work more as partners.
It's almost impossible, though, to cultivate that relationship, really, in a way, isn't it? Because it does to some extent come down to their personality and the way that they're used to treating people in adversity, or people who are, if you like, their employees. And you can I've had some seriously nice people who didn't really need to be nice, and I've had people who ought to have been nice, and everything would point to the fact that they were going to be nice. It just didn't work out between us. But it definitely changes my enthusiasm, and dare I say it, your kind of desire to get on with the next part of what needs doing. That shelf and its painting sure becomes attractive when this particular client is knocking on the door. Yeah,
amazing. Can you share what you told me earlier about the one client that you had?
Oh yeah, obviously naming no names. A period of time ago, shall we say, I had a client who, and I'd probably done about 90% of the website, and I got a phone call, and it was sort of out the blue. Didn't really expect it, and I really genuinely don't know what was going on. And I put the phone down afterwards, and I actually thought, I wonder what's going on in their life that they did that, because basically they just got on the phone and kind of more or less yelled that this deadline had been missed, and this deadline had been missed, and it wasn't what they'd expected, and I generously pointed out that all of the deadlines had been missed because of their own employees not giving me things. Anyway, because this tirade carried on, I just said, look, we're 90% through it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all your money back, and I don't want anything to do with this project anymore. And it was transformational. That aggression just left, and all that was left was kind of a much meeker person. I think I had tried not to be confrontational. I just explained, look, do you know what? If you're going to shout at me, we can't be doing it this way. And it was all fine from that moment on. I think they just needed a bit of a reality check. I think maybe there was stuff going on in their life, but also I think maybe this is the way they behaved with their own employees.
Yeah.
And I actually, that one sentence, I put a lot on the line, actually. And if I'd thought it through, I probably wouldn't have done it again, because there was a lot at stake, and I tossed a coin, because that could have gone quite badly for me. It worked. I was very lucky. That strategy worked. It wasn't even a strategy. It was a reaction to get this person off the phone, really, and to restore some normality in my life. But I wouldn't advise doing that.
But you know what? I think that links onto one of the biggest killers of enthusiasm when you're up against it, particularly with the finances of stuff. If money's getting a little bit tight and you really need to keep the clients that you've got on, you're really under pressure, aren't you? To kind of go their way with stuff that you might not want to. And if you've not got that, that's the fortunate thing about my decision to go off. I don't need to make much money because I'm living somewhere cheaply, which is maybe a lot bolder and maybe happier, more enthusiastic, because I do turn down a lot of stuff,
Yeah, well, I completely agree. The financial pressure can be crippling, sometimes to your sort of enthusiasm. You just sort of have to get on with the jobs that you need to. sometimes just to make ends meet. I'll tell you one of the things that I find has been a bit of a thing in the past, and I'm sort of opening myself up a bit here, but I have in the past been quite good at measuring myself against other people and judging myself not to be as good. So again, mentioning no names, you might look, and that's the thing, we're all on the internet. The internet is full of people maybe pretending to be successful and happy. Maybe they are successful and happy, but I have fallen into that trap in the past of looking at this successful person online and sort of measuring myself against them and thinking, I need to do more of that. And in some senses, that can drive my enthusiasm and make me want to do more. But in other situations, it just makes me think, oh, God, I'm really not amounting to very much.
We talked, didn't we, earlier about that? And there's a lot of similarities between you and I on this because, well, now I think maybe both of us feel comfortable. I do, but I felt in my 30s that I always was judging myself against people who were more successful in their careers, where I was sort of moving from one thing to another all over the place. And now, somehow, as time's gone on, it just feels like, well, I've been lucky because I've just done things as I wanted to do them and always have,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It really comes down to perceptions of what success is and whether you can step out of the, I don't know, whether it's money or fame or whatever it might be, or the size of your house or whatever you're judging. If you can step out of that and measure your success, enthusiasm, if you like, against something much more basic, like, do you have free time? Are you enjoying the moments in life where you're not working, and so on? And I think all of us have had those thoughts, but I think it's quite hard to constantly be like that. It's certainly in the country in which I live. There's constant pressures to keep finances, especially keep those going, and so you might not be judging yourself against them, but you have to have those as thoughts in your head a little bit. But yeah, you're right. You shouldn't be judging yourself against this person or that person. And it's astonishing how late humans get to this. I mean, some people presumably make these great decisions at a very, very early age. But, whilst I was never, ever one to go in search of lots and lots of money, it wasn't until, like you were a certain age where you actually become calmer about these things and realise there's no point in measuring myself against all these other people that I don't know. And I think the internet contributes to that problem. Especially in the days of mobile phones and things, where it's so easy to be shown all the time, and I really do mean all the time, what success is. There's the man in front of it's a stupid example, we all know it's ridiculous, but there's the man leaning against his sports car with the private jet in the background. I mean, obviously that's ridiculous, but those kind of messages are constantly being sent out, aren't they? And they're not very helpful often. Yeah.
But I think in some ways they have an appeal for people. It's the same as, oh gosh, this is going to sound really bad. But, there's always been that thing with lottery winners. So people who play the lottery, and that generally are known to be the people who need money the most in society. And typically, if they win it, they are the quickest to lose that money as well. So it's often, you're looking for the wrong solution a lot of the time when you're looking at the money. And I think those adverts sort of appeal to people who have got themselves caught up on the wrong thing, really.
Yes, they do. I'm sure there's a lot of that, the people who want the car are obviously, and the jet are going to be the people who respond to those adverts, whereas somebody like me sees it very cynically as, good grief, is that real? But enthusiasm, it comes from all sorts of different directions. And I think basically, for me, it comes from doing something new. And also doing something. I do get motivated by the moral of the project, if you know what I mean. So if it's like a shoe shop or something, I'm going to be less enthusiastic than, let's say, it was a charity, for example. The nature of the actual build itself can contribute to my enthusiasm.
Yes. There was a couple of other things that I just thought of, really. One we mentioned, actually, we were talking earlier about the autonomy aspect and being able to see the results of something you produce, which is, what a lot of people don't have in their workplaces. If they work in an office, in part of a department, they really don't understand what they do and how it relates to the whole, where we get to control that a lot of the time, don't we? We see the results of what we've done, which I think is essential. But sorry, there was another point. What was it? So that autonomy, but also, it's that helping people. You just mentioned it. I just reminded there was somebody on one of the Facebook groups who were mentioning that they thought their father was coming to the end of his life.
Oh, yes, yes.
And his father's main thing was, had he helped enough people in his life? And I think it's difficult perhaps in web design to do that, but if you feel you can help people in their businesses in some form or another with your websites, I think that's an important thing to get enthusiasm, isn't it?
You do find there's like these philanthropic pushes, isn't there? Almost like website sprints, where a bunch of people, rather like you and I, will sort of all congregate online at one time. And there'll be a project that needs doing. So, it might be a particular charity in a particular area. But the idea is to get the site up and running for free just because it's a good thing to do. I've never actually been involved in that, but I think that would be a nice way to restore your imbalance of enthusiasm, if you know what I mean. You do something. I mean, it's an old trope, isn't it? But it's one that I think is true, is that the more you give, ultimately, probably the more happy you will be. Although it's not easy sometimes to behave like that, or to see that, I'm giving all this time. I'm not getting anything paid for it. But nice things happen. But it might not be right away, and it might not in any way be connected that you can see.
Yes, and I felt it in some projects, actually. There's some people, and there's one that some work that's coming to us soon by somebody who's trusted someone else. They built this site on Wix and they do his SEO, and it seems to be falling off SERPs rapidly. I'm so motivated to try and do the job for him and make it work and help his business in some way, because of that. And I love the fact that there might be that possibility to help somebody. Yeah. So there you go. Sort of like human nature stuff, really, is what it gives us enthusiasm. Something new, something meaningful, something moral, something of importance. Or something blue.
Yeah, that's it. You've got it in a word. It's blue. That's what it is. Right. We've done 25 minutes, Dave. This is not good. It's too long. Okay. We should stop right now.
Yes.
And go to the interview, I think.
Indeed.
Hi there, guys. Welcome to another episode of the WP Builds podcast. This week, we are talking to two people who actually, oddly, we've had on as individuals in the past. So we've got Tom Usborne from GeneratePress, who we had on, I think, probably about June or something in 2017. And Paul Lacey, who we had on kind of a similar time, perhaps just a little bit before Tom was on, to be honest, last year in 2017. And the reason that we've got them both on together is because they've kind of collaborated on something, which I think is really cool, really new and interesting. It's got to do with GeneratePress. So before we get stuck into that, hi Tom, hi Paul.
Hi.
Hello.
We're not going to know which one is which until slightly later. But Tom is the Canadian one and Paul is the English sounding one. So that maybe will make things a little bit easier. So if you don't mind, I'm going to throw this question firstly to Tom, being the sort of founder and the lead developer. Actually, Tom, I don't know if that's still the case. Are you still doing this largely by yourself, or since we last spoke, have things changed in your setup at GeneratePress? Have you got more people on board, or is it mainly just you?
We have Leo, who does the majority of our support now, which is kind of good. It lets me kind of focus on all the code, but I'm the only coder. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So if you don't mind, we'll ask the first set of questions to you, because you have a new thing coming out, or out, who knows, by the time this podcast has finally aired, called, now I'm going to say it's called GeneratePress Sites. I hope I've got that right. Do you want to tell us what it is? What is GeneratePress Sites all about?
Well, it is basically a way for new users to get kind of a kickstart when they're creating a new website. So right now, when you install GeneratePress, if you're kind of a seasoned pro or you kind of know your way around WordPress, it starts off super simple, and then you can kind of create whatever it is you envision. But for a lot of new users who install it, I think it's super overwhelming because it's really simple. They might not know exactly what it is they're trying to create. They don't know what they want it to look like. So GeneratePress sites are kind of a way to look at some pre-built sites with 4 or 5 pages that have been pre-designed for you, and then you can just go through a few clicks and your site will look like that, and then you can make whatever changes. So it's kind of a kickstart for users creating sites.
From a user's point of view, how does that work then? Do we have new menu items and sort of visual thumbnail representations of what certain pages will look like, and then we click an install button and we wait for the wheel to stop spinning and boom, it's done? Is that kind of how it's going to work?
Exactly. Yeah, you go into the GeneratePress dashboard and there's a new button in there called Sites, and you click in there and you have kind of 3 columns of screenshots of what they look like, and you can preview them, you can navigate around, see which one you really like, and then there's just like I think it's 2 buttons, maybe 3 buttons. First, it does like a backup of your current settings in case you've kind of set some things up and you regret going through the installation. You can kind of revert back to what you had, and then it installs. Yeah, and then it installs the actual theme options, and then you can actually stop there. So if you already have content, you have your about page, your contact page, whatever, then you don't actually have to go the full mile. You can just do the actual theme options, which is, what your header looks like, what your navigation looks like, stuff like that, and then quit. Or if you're starting completely from scratch and you want to just go in and tweak, if you want to change like what a photo is and what the title is and your content, you can go one step further and install the actual dummy content as well.
Should we be of that mindset? We've decided that we're going to go for the full Monty, as we say over here, and install an entire site. Will it come with the images? My experience of these things in the past is sometimes that delightful moment is sort of disappears when you see there's kind of placeholder images with little crosses through them and things like that. How does it work in your setup? Do you use royalty-free images that you can you could legitimately leave on the site itself?
Yes, yeah. So they're all GPL, they're all royalty free. So what you see is what you get once you install it. So you'll look at your site using GeneratePress with the black navigation and the white boxes, and you'll click a few buttons and you'll go back to your site and it'll look completely different with all the images and everything that you saw when you previewed it.
When you mentioned a moment ago about taking a backup, is there a sort of a position in the UI through which, once it's installed itself, we can at any moment, let's say a week later, go back to how it was before? Do you keep that somewhere, that little file, whatever it is that you've decided is the way to do that backup? Can you return to that at any point in time?
Well, the actual backup is just of the theme options for now.
I see. Okay.
So there is not a way to actually undo the content and all that kind of stuff once it gets installed yet. I would love to figure out a way to do that. I'm sure it will happen in the coming months, but for now it's just the theme options that you can import using the regular theme option import export stuff.
People like me, and I think a lot of the people in my community, we're kind of ardent users of page builders. A notable example that I know both Paul and I use rather a lot is Beaver Builder, and we're kind of used to this idea, because we have things like page templates where you can click a button and that individual page becomes updated, and you can choose to append it or you can erase what's there already and overwrite it all. But that's sort of one page at a time, whereas this is tackling the more than that. It's the site. Typically, how many? I think you said 5. What pages have you sort of settled on as the ones to best represent a brand new website?
Well, it's really up to the kind of website. So,
Okay.
I mean, if it's going to be like an agency, then they'll have a certain set of pages. If it's going to be if it's going to be a store, they're going to have another certain set of pages. So really, it's up to whoever's creating the site and what they think is most useful for the user when they end up installing it.
So could this, I mean, it sounds a bit silly, but could this sites project import like 100 different pages all in one go, or it could just do 3 or 4 pages?
Yeah, if you have really good hosting, that's not going to time out.
Great.
It uses the WordPress importer, which I'm sure most people have used. So if you have a really massive content file, then you might run into some timeouts and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think we're ever going to run into stuff like that, because they're very simple. They're meant to save time. So the one thing I don't want to see happen is somebody installing a site and having to undo 50% of the site and take up a few hours of their time. I want it to kind of save time where you can just go in, switch some things up, and you're done.
Is there any? Let's say, for example, that I've built a site and I haven't launched it yet, and I'm halfway through, and I've got my contact page and I've got my about us page, and I've the slug is /contact, things like that. Do you when you create your new pages, presumably they have slugs attached to them, do you sort of take steps to make sure that my contact page is not overwritten by your contact page and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So the WordPress importer will automatically create a new ID if that ID already exists, and that's where things can get a little finicky with the whole thing, because lots of things save certain IDs. So if you have like a page header that's saved to an ID, there has to be a certain amount of remapping when you import if the ID changes, which I've worked really hard to make very reliable, but it's not completely perfect. So the best way to handle GeneratePress sites is on just a fresh installation. Right. That way you're almost guaranteed it's going to be what you see is what you get to a point. Yep. Where if you already have it, it's not going to get rid of your old pages, but things might not be absolutely perfect as what you saw. Yeah,
I think that's the sort of slight misconception with CMSs, isn't it? Is that you can just press a button and everything is completely updated and there's never going to be any problems. I completely agree. Yeah. Something like this sounds like best to be tried, certainly at the beginning, to be tried on a fresh vanilla install. So on a sort of technical level, if we rewind the clock, how long ago was it before you began fermenting this idea in your mind? And also, if you wouldn't mind telling us some of the sort of technical fun that you've had, some of the little technical issues that you've had along the way, getting to the point where it's now ready for public use.
Well, I mean, it's not a new idea. It's definitely been around for a while. So it's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I think it was back in maybe October of 2017 that I first started kind of laying the groundwork and getting in my head what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted it to actually function. And then we released it for beta testing maybe about 2 weeks ago. So it was definitely a few months in the making. And from a technical standpoint, it was a lot of fun and really challenging. Oh, cool. I mean, when you're looking at a WordPress theme, it's not the most complicated code, and it shouldn't be. It should be quite simple. So kind of moving into this importer where there are just an amazing amount of variables and moving parts, it was super challenging because I want to make it as solid as I possibly could. I mean, having to kind of fragment things up to avoid any kind of server issues, because whenever you're downloading files and you're kind of changing database values and stuff like that, you can run into all kinds of database issues and all kinds of server issues if your hosting isn't great, which it exists. So that was the biggest challenge. Yeah, that was the biggest challenge for sure. It was just trying to make it as reliable as I possibly could for everybody.
So how does that work? Do you do it all in one hit? You can't kind of run half the task and then wait for a moment and then do the rest of it. You have to do it all in one big dump, if you like.
Yeah. So you kind of click a button and it makes a series of AJAX calls. So it'll go through one function, and then once that function's done, it'll kick off the next function. So I tried to fragment it as much as possible, so there's not one massive function being called right away and it takes the entire time. It's actually a series of maybe 6 or 7 different things happening, but they're all happening kind of right in front of you as the little spinner goes.
Yeah, it's fun, basically. It's all good fun. When you sort of set about to do this, did you look around for people who'd done something similar before? And, WordPress, GPL, we're allowed to look inside of others' endeavors, shall we say. Did you take the approach that you'd look at other people's solutions and adapt them, or did you go completely, right, I am going to do this from the ground up?
No, yeah, for sure. You have to go look at what other people have done because they've learned various lessons that you're going to learn at some point. So there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Luckily, there's lots of stuff out there. One of the main things that I really enjoyed looking through was a plugin called One-Click Demo Import. It has like 200,000 active installs on the WordPress repo.
Wow.
And some of the stuff that they've done in there is really, really cool. And it really helped me kind of make things more reliable on my end.
So you were able to circumvent a little bit of the work, which is, well, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what makes CMS's open source software really fabulous to use. Yeah, I'm pleased that you said that. What was the name of that plugin again?
I think it's called One-Click Demo Import.
One-Click Demo Import. Yeah, if you find that to be the case, I'm going to explore that and probably write it up in the show notes. One-Click Demo Import. I'll try and remember that. Yeah. So, I guess one of the questions that's going to be on everybody's minds at this point is, what's the cost of these wonderful new innovations, these sites that you're giving us the option to install?
It's included with GP Premium.
There you go. What a good answer. What a good answer. So basically, it's more or less free.
Yeah. If you have a valid license key, then you can go right in even now. I think we're on beta 3, so you can install it. You can play with it. In the future, who knows? Maybe we'll be coming out with kind of premium site packs that you can install that'll extend the sites and certain categories of site packs and stuff like that. But for now, I really want to build up like a nice little library that's just right there inside GP Premium.
It kind of feels like that model, doesn't it? It feels like there's room to grow, see what the community wants to look at, see which ones get downloaded, and it feels like that would be a perfect place to put a little marketplace because the free stuff is free, but this one over here is $10 or $20 or whatever it is that you set as the price. And I think that's a great way to keep your endeavors going. Really, to be honest, I think that should be thought of very, very much as a plan for the future, because nobody's going to mind giving you some cash, Tom, I don't think.
Well, and what's really cool is if you wanted to create a pack of 10 sites that you wanted to sell, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't only have to be through me or through GeneratePress. It can be through you. It can be through Paul. It can be through whoever. There's just a certain process that has to be followed, and of course a certain protocol that needs to we have to look over and make sure quality is good and security is good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking at it as like a way for the entire community to kind of become to kind of get in on it. Well, and they can provide free sites, premium sites, whatever you want.
Yeah, this seems like a perfect moment to bring in the other person who's yet to speak. He may have gone off somewhere by now. We don't know. Paul, are you still there?
Hello.
Oh, he
I'm
is.
still here.
Yeah.
I'm just listening as if I'm listening to the podcast.
Oh, well, that's
brilliant.
Good. Right. Well, we'll go back to Tom then. Thanks, Paul, for your contribution.
Great.
No, we're only joking.
Send the money as usual.
Yeah, I should say I got to know Paul quite well of late, so we don't mind having a bit of a joke at his expense. So, Paul, tell us what you're on the call for, because you've got yourself embroiled in this fantastic project. What's your role? What have you been up to?
So I think I was just working one day as usual, and I think I just appeared in some Facebook group, one of those really cool secret Facebook groups.
Ah, yes, yes.
And I think that's how it was, actually. I think I just was pulled into this Facebook group. Tom probably created it, and with a couple of other people. And it turns out that, we're being kind of, invited to take part in the project and contribute designs and, contribute our opinion and as users of GeneratePress as well. And just basically get involved and help Tom push it forward, because Tom kind of will always say, oh, I'm not a designer and this and that and the other. And actually, he is quite good at design. I've seen some of the ones. You've done some of them, haven't you, Tom? So some of them are yours. And but I think the cool thing about this really is that, like Tom said, the idea of these kind of one-click install sites has been around for quite a while. It's been something that's on quite a lot of the themes on ThemeForest and stuff like that. But I do think the angle is a little bit different. It's probably more similar to the Genesis type angle, whereby I think a lot of the ones on ThemeForest and some of the other ones that are all about kind of turnkey sites. Kind of if you need a site for a restaurant, you can use this one if you need a site for this. So it's kind of those kind of products to me are more kind of useful to the kind of person who comes into the web design industry who isn't a designer, but maybe they know how to sell, they know how to do that kind of thing, and they're quite techie, and they can set up an agency basically and use kind of turnkey products and plumb them together and that kind of thing. And from my perspective, with GeneratePress sites, it's more a case of what Tom said in terms of initially it's kind of getting the first time user who doesn't even know where to start. Because if you do look at GeneratePress or Genesis, for instance, what it looks like just out the box, it looks like almost nothing. It just looks like a white site with a grey nav bar and whereas you can look at one on ThemeForest and it will look really exciting, and there's a slider here and there's this going on and there's a video background and all that sort of stuff. But there is a reason why systems like GeneratePress are so popular and successful, and it is probably because of the way that the industry's going. I mean, to be honest, if you for me as a GeneratePress user, I'm kind of a hardcore loyal GeneratePress user. I know the philosophy of the theme. I know it's all about accessibility, performance, simplicity, extendability, and the funny thing now, in terms of where GeneratePress sits, is that it doesn't really matter if you are a developer who absolutely loves coding all day, or you are a designer who knows no code and you like to use a page builder. The bizarre thing is now that with all the kind of shake-up in the industry, what those two groups of people actually need is kind of the same now. Everybody wants a simple, stable frameworks to build their either page builder sites off or build their kind of totally coded from scratch type sites from. And GeneratePress kind of solves that problem for them. And when you bring in GeneratePress sites, I think that, they will definitely probably develop some kind of turnkey type sites, but because it's open to the community a bit more than the kind of closed shop that you would find on ThemeForest type solutions and those kind of things, there will be people contributing who are contributing purely a starter site for a developer or a starter site for this type of person, and it won't just be about turnkey websites for industry niches. So I don't actually remember what the original question was. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It was actually really interesting. I got sort of sucked into just listening to what you were saying, because in my head, it feels like some of the things that you're describing and using the generic word ThemeForest, but we all know, I think we all know what you're talking about, possibly. We click buttons and there it is, and it's got the contact form in the correct position, and it's got the the logos all in and all of the background images, and it feels with it, all you'd have to do in a sense is change some of the lorem and you could be ready to go. So what's been the remit for you as a designer for these GeneratePress sites? If I was to take the contributions that you've made and press the button, what would I see? What maybe you could describe literally what would be imported into each of the pages, and how would it differ from that turnkey site? What's missing and what's different?
It's funny because the remit was extremely strict that Tom laid down for us, in that there was absolutely no rules whatsoever. I think Tom did intend to have some rules at some point, but just from what I understand, he was busy kind of just coding or playing Civilization.
Stuff, yeah.
How did you know about that?
You told me. You told me in a moment of weakness.
Yeah.
But is it different though? Do you have? You're not trying to literally create. I think that what I'm trying to say is the theme forest description is there is your fully functional, ready to go site. Yeah, sure enough, you might have to hook up a contact form and you might have to just tweak the menu items or what have you. But to all intents and purposes, there it is. If you're happy with it and you want it to be very, quite generic, there you go. But it sounds like you're not doing that. You're doing something which is, it sounds almost like it's a framework to build on. It's like, here's the scaffolding, here's the general feel of how it might look. Now get in there and finish it off.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. There's at least 6 people involved helping with the project, and there'll probably be more in the future as well, I imagine. And we've all got a different view on why we decided to do it. I mean, there was no question, if an opportunity like this comes along, everybody was well up for it, and honestly, Tom said at the beginning, should I, be looking to pay you guys, and everybody unanimously was saying, no way, this is just a great opportunity. We just want to be involved. This, and from my perspective, I didn't know where it's going. For me personally, I just knew that this was a really cool thing to create something to, be part of one of the most respected themes out in the whole WordPress space, and to actually, be part of kind of helping develop that product and giving something to the community and stuff. And in terms of what's different, I think that there will be sites that are turnkey based.
Okay.
Because some people will be thinking like that, especially if they're kind of thinking, so I know some of the people in the group are thinking, maybe one day there will be a marketplace and this can be my job. I can actually make websites all day. And I can tell you that it's addictive, because compared to client work, which, I appreciate all the client work, it's what pays my bills, but I very much enjoyed just designing sites, just with the challenge that other people are going to click and install this, and can they use it for something? Yeah. If they can't use it for something, can they be inspired by it for something? And that was so addictive. I can see why people would, think they could build a small industry or a whole kind of small business for themselves around the idea of creating GeneratePress sites.
Would that be a fair description, Tom? That these are as much about inspiring as they are, or I don't know what the word is I'm trying to say here, but one of the outcomes is the site is installed and it's used as is, with slight modifications. But I presume one of the intentions is what Paul just said. You click at it, you click one, load it up, get some good ideas from that one, then load another one, and then load another one, and each time scribble down some ideas, and then eventually, pick your favorite and adapt all the bits and put it all together in that way.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, the really cool thing is you can look at one of them, and if you really like it, but the colors aren't right or the navigation position isn't quite what you want, you can install it, go right into the customizer, and you can customize it just like you would a blank install.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what I would want people to do. But at the same time, you can easily use them as just a turnkey website, install it, change the logo, change the lorem, and you're good to go. It's kind of, there's definitely going to be sites that are more turnkey, and there's definitely going to be sites that are more like, this is just, kind of a push in the right direction, and you can take it from here kind of thing. So I think it's going to be kind of both.
Yeah. Do you envisage your role? Obviously, you'll still be involved heavily with GeneratePress and what have you. But should this thing take off, which because it kind of feels like it could be a really big deal. This could be like 50% of everything that you do. People are not buying GeneratePress because it's GeneratePress anymore. They're buying GeneratePress because of the sites which beautifully bolt onto it. Are you imagining sort of like support burdens and queries and all of those kind of things suddenly moving you in this direction and using your time up? So in other words, Tom's time is taken up by stuff that Paul invented because Tom's got to field Paul's design things.
Well, I already do, right? It's not for Paul specifically, but for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's kind of the kind of questions we field every single day. Really, not a lot of them are actually GeneratePress option specific.
Okay.
Right? As they're already going for a certain design and they need to know how to make their navigation tweaked like this or tweaked like that. And we're happy to help with stuff like that. And if there's more support, it just means that there's more sales and things are healthier and the theme is healthier. So I mean, I'd be happy to have that kind of problem. And if that does happen, then we'll just hire more support crew and
nice.
We'll be good to go. And I imagine because we do attribute the certain sites to the authors as well. So I assume that they will also get some questions from people who are kind of installing it. And I'm definitely always going to be involved because no matter what, so say like you wanted to create a site pack of a certain amount of sites, the actual files that would actually get downloaded by the end user, those are going to come from my server because I need to make sure that the security is good, that you're not importing some bogus JavaScript, some nasty stuff like that. So all the files get kind of they get swept for all kinds of nasty stuff, which is definitely not what we want inside of the GeneratePress ecosystem.
Nope.
So everything's definitely going to come through me, and to make sure quality is good and the security is good.
Do you have a workflow that needs to be adhered to? So it sounds like you're giving out all of these files, but is there a sort of structure, like a numbered list of things that you need to go through in order to enroll in the program, if you like, and then finally build it all and then give it back to you and submit it for approval? Is there a sort of regimented way, or how do you actually build a GeneratePress site?
Yeah, there's kind of a process that I'll be making a video on shortly. Okay. I actually tried the other day and I got to the screenshot part and my program broke and I said, I deleted the whole video. And But I'll be making a new video. I'll be doing some documentation, stuff like that. There's a once the actual site is there, the actual creation of the individual files and stuff is only maybe 5 minutes.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
So would you pin this on? What level of expertise would you say with WordPress you would have to have? In other words, could a fairly new person to WordPress who was a brilliant designer pull this off relatively easily?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. If they know how to do, use the WordPress exporter and click a few buttons here or there, or just follow through an article and click where it says to click, they'll be able to do it. Now,
a moment ago, Paul sort of slightly self-effacingly said that he just woke up to find that he was in a Facebook group. But presumably it wasn't a simple falling off a log event. Presumably you have some standing with Paul and you've got a high regard for Paul and the other members of your community. How did you come to choose Paul and the other people? What was it that you went out looking for when you decided upon them? Paul, it's time to go red.
Yeah, they're just people. They're just people that I really respect, and I really like their designs and just their overall demeanors and the way that they conduct themselves within the various communities that I think we're all a part of. They're just kind of standout people that I was really happy that I could work with and they could be a part of it with me.
Dare I say it? Has Paul lived up to your expectations?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
And
so
Paul,
nice,
has
really
Tom
nice
lived
kind
up
words,
to
thank
your
you.
expectations?
Uh-oh.
You know, Tom is, you know, to all of us who are absolute, you know, hardcore GeneratePress fans, is kind of like a, you know, like the demigod in Moana or something. You know, we just don't know how he does the things he does, and
You're
yeah, it was
welcome.
exactly, yeah, great film.
Yeah.
And you know, when you know, we were kind of asked to be part of it, you know, that there is an element of, you know, this can't be, we can't charge for this. This is, you know, it feels wrong. Tom's like demigod, you know, so he's got to. We need to help. I mean, to be honest, it's help. We just wanted to help the cause, and much like Tom said, you know, the respect that all of us have got in the community for Tom is massive, and he's, you know, legendary with his support. But I actually can't vouch for that because I've never needed any support, because everything just completely works. Everything he does is so carefully, because we've seen his processes now. You know, we're not seeing exactly what it looks like when he's sitting there coding and everything, but we've seen the how meticulous he is about everything and the questions that he's asking us, and you know, so it's just been a super honor to be involved, really, and yeah, Tom's definitely lived up to his legendary status.
Oh, that's such a nice. Well, it's a lovely comment from both of you. It's nice that Tom feels that he's picked a really nice. Well, the word moral seems to fit beautifully there. You know, he's picked people who are moral and that he believes are going to do the right thing. But also, it's quite nice that you've reciprocate that back with a ton of respect, Paul,
totally.
for something that, you know, you've been involved with a lot. So you've hooked yourself into GeneratePress, and hopefully over time, kudos will sort of accrue itself to you, Paul, for doing this, and I hope it does, because you're obviously doing it for gratis, shall we say, which is very honourable of you. Do you both feel, therefore, that GeneratePress, I mean, Tom, goodness knows how I'm going to ask this question without it sounding rude, but I don't want it to. How is GeneratePress doing? You know, is it still growing in the magnificent way it was? Are you still delighted with it? Are there any sort of things that you can tell our listeners who haven't used GeneratePress to sort of persuade them that you're the theme to be getting on board with?
So rude. No.
It is. I think I did quite well.
You did. It's doing amazingly. Every month we're kind of breaking records. Things haven't slowed down whatsoever. Things have, especially since the last time we talked. And I think you asked me, you know, a year from now, where do you want to be? And I said I just want it to kind of keep going, and it's certainly done so. And it has, you know, doubled and tripled and quadrupled, and it's just it's definitely never been stronger. And I think going forward with WordPress and with Gutenberg and all the things that are kind of happening all at once with the WordPress community, I see nothing but good things. And we're just going to keep on going stronger and stronger, and we're going to adapt. And this is kind of the first step into that. And then once Gutenberg is out, these are going to be Gutenberg sites. And, you know, it's just I'm really excited about where we're going with the entire project and where it's going to end up.
You know what? You've said the G word. Now we have to talk about the G word, which I don't think we've had a podcast where we haven't said Gutenberg. Or I'd say Gothenburg. But it feels to me, do you know what? It felt to me a little time ago, dare I say it, heretical nonsense though it is, it felt to me like with page builders and what have you, that themes were becoming of less importance. And now, with things like Gutenberg, it suddenly feels like that has completely spun around. And you're right on the brink of something really cool again, that themes are suddenly going to be, you know, themes linked with Gutenberg are going to just open up so many wonderful possibilities. What is your gut reaction to Gutenberg? Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that little trope again and again. What's your gut reaction to Gutenberg? And do you feel like that's going to help GeneratePress as time goes on?
Absolutely. I love it. I
Yeah.
think that it's a step in the right direction. I think people, I mean, obviously with the certain rises of, page builders and stuff like that, people need this. People don't want to use the regular tiny MCE and the regular what you see is what you get at kind of editors. They want to actually see what their actual page is going to look like as they build it. So it's a huge step in the right direction. And actually, we have GeneratePress sections, one of the modules in GP Premium, which was kind of a way to step out of the editor. And now we're not going to need it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's one less thing we're going to have to maintain. And it will work. It will continue to work for people who love using it. But it's not going to be necessary like it was once when we actually created it, because Gutenberg gives us that ability to create sections just within WordPress core. And I am a massive fan of WordPress core, and whatever they do that makes stuff that I've done obsolete, that's awesome for me. It means I can shift my focus to other things within GeneratePress.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm really following closely all the work they're doing. I'm looking through all kinds of issues and pull requests and everything, and I'm keeping close tabs on it, and I'm really excited. I think they released an update today that I haven't checked out yet, but yeah, I'm really excited about it.
It feels to me like it's just almost like the dawning of something for a theme such as yours. Suddenly we're going to have this power by default, and the theme's going to become of importance again, whereas it felt to me, probably the ecosystem that I dwell in, and Paul I know is similar, felt like page builders had sort of taken that thunder a bit. And it sort of feels like that's kind of moving back, because now the page builder, in inverted commas, is now in WordPress core, and so we're now worrying about the theme again, and so GeneratePress is right there. What do you think, Paul? Have you played with Gutenberg much?
Yeah. I mean, you probably, as we're friends and stuff, that we've had conversations, and you probably noticed me panicking about Gutenberg some months ago, and then that's completely turned around for me now.
Yep.
I'm now just really excited about it, and actually my starters, my GeneratePress sites had Gutenberg in there, but it's not yet ready to. I don't know what it was, Tom. It was like it wouldn't import properly or something. So I'd
have to look at that.
Yeah, for now we've kind of took it out, but I was really excited to kind of put the sites in there with an example of Gutenberg as a page or a post. And to me now, as you know, I use Beaver Builder and Beaver Thema. I've been playing with Pods and Beaver Thema and Beaver Builder and GeneratePress all together with Gutenberg as well, and it does look like an absolutely perfect scenario for using something like Beaver Thema to set your kind of global style, with GeneratePress being the foundation of that.
Yep.
And then having the client able to use something like Gutenberg, so they can't completely destroy your design. They've got one zone in the page that they have got some good control of. So it's particularly good for kind of custom post types and stuff like that. And I'm really excited about where it's going, and which is a complete U-turn, because when there was a couple of blog posts that came out that were talking about the death of custom fields and ACF and pods and all this stuff, I was literally just looking at new solutions and ready to quit and just go and start being a plumber or something. I didn't know what to do, but it just it's all kind of turned around, as these things tend to do. The community get involved, feedback comes in, and the tool that is envisioned finds its place, which might be different than Matt's original plan. Or it might be actually exactly what Matt's original plan was, and that we all just got completely overreacted and.
Well, do you know,
I drama.
Well, I don't know.
Drama.
Yeah, I don't know that it was. I don't really know what it was, but it wasn't just you. There was an awful lot of people, some of whom I would classify as extremely clever people. were getting panicked, and I think there's probably a lesson to be learned going forward in this about how to communicate ideas. And if you're going to do something revolutionary, which this kind of is in our little community, convey the intention, as well as maybe some sort of prototype or mock-up right at the start, so that nobody's sort of freaking out. Because exactly like you, exploring all those ACF pods, all those kind of things, and then suddenly thinking, is this even going to work? Am I going to have to rebuild this in a year's time from scratch? So yeah, very pleased that Gutenberg
There were definitely certain things that they could have done better when they announced it. I mean, especially when it comes to custom post types and custom fields, lots of people don't even use the WordPress editor.
Yep.
So a lot of the time it's just turned off and your entire custom post type is custom fields.
Yep.
And everyone went, but what's going to happen?
Yeah, where are they going to be?
And of course now you install it, and if you have a custom post type without an editor, it's just not there and everything's fine. And there was a lot of panic, but it was really early, and it's still pretty early, I think. I know they wanted to get it out by April, but I'm not too sure if that's going to happen. But they kind of put themselves out there with the really early version, and I think that was a lot of the panic that we saw.
Yes, I agree. And there was no clarity on where things were going to be, and if this function didn't exist, well, there's no room for it. It can't be anywhere, and where are the bits going to go, below or above, or what? And the drama. Yeah, I agree. Maybe there's some. I bet there's lessons to be learned, just because the email inbox must have been horrific with people freaking out. Well, do you know what? We've managed to talk for about 45 minutes. And I think really that's probably as long as we should talk, unless either of you have something dramatically important to tell us both.
No, I think we kind of handled it pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, if that's the case, I'd like to thank both of you for coming on again, making the time. We're talking in the UK at the moment. It's about 10:15 at night. So thanks, Paul, for staying up late, and thanks, Tom.
Thank you both. Thank you both for not making me wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I can't remember if we did that to you last time, but yeah, an absolute pleasure to have you. Yes, sorry, an absolute pleasure to have you all on. And I really hope that as the weeks go by, I end up reporting on many more times about GeneratePress, and of course, in particular, GeneratePress Sites. Tom, just before we go, is there a particular URL, a slog to mention where people can find out about this specific aspect of GeneratePress?
GeneratePress.com, and then in the footer you'll see a development, or I think it's called changelogs now. Okay. There's a link there, and the most recent one is a post on 1.6, which shows you how to install it right now, because it is in beta. But I'm hoping to get the final version out on the 21st, so March 21st.
So we're recording this on the 14th of March.
So a week from today.
Okay, so hopefully by the time this episode goes out, we'll have a more stable way of doing it. Thanks, Tom, and thanks, Paul. Thanks for coming on the WP Builds podcast. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Today's ending fact is a bit of a nerdy one that I just want to sneak in. And it's to do with Memcached. And it's all about the fact that last week, or over the last couple of weeks, somewhere in the region of 70 or 80,000 public-facing Memcached servers, if you like, have been compromised. Well, the fact that they're public-facing shouldn't happen. And it's possible to send packets to these Memcached instances and get a denial of service reflection attack. And for every byte that you put in, you can get 51,000 bytes back out. And it's also possible to spoof the IP. So in effect, what I could do is I could say, okay, Memcached servers throughout the world that are public facing, I would like some data back from you, please. And can I have 51,000 times the amount that I've sent to you? And could you send it all to wpbuilds.com, please? And it will happily do it. And it did over the last few weeks. Places like Akamai managed to get on top of it really quickly and shut it down. But for a very small amount of time, a week or so ago, the internet had 1.7 terabits per second of this bogus traffic. Now, apparently, this level of nonsense traffic circulating on the internet is potential to wipe out the internet. I don't mean wipe it out like for good, but it's possible that it could bring down not Google, not Amazon, not Facebook, all of it, the entire thing. So there's my little fact for today. Be careful, and if you've got a server, make sure that Memcached isn't public facing.
How do you know? I mean, it's Memcached. The only thing I know about is comes free on SiteGround shared hosting. So how would you know?
Well, you essentially, if you've got your own server, you should know. And if you're paying for decent hosting, it's not going to be. And if you think about it, 70 to 80,000 is not that many machines. Presumably, it's people who've set up a server and haven't configured it correctly. And one assumes that these services like Akamai will simply block traffic egressing from those servers. I don't really know how it's going to be dealt with, but if you don't run your own hosting, you've got nothing to worry about. But amazing that such a simple little thing can, because this could be a bunch of kids, and now it's in the wild. Who knows when it's next going to happen and take down the entire internet? Anyway, so there you go. Get your tinfoil hats out and go and live in a bunker somewhere because the internet's doomed. No, of course it's not. We all love the internet, and I'm sure this will be figured out in time. Right. Have you got anything to add to that, David?
Nothing.
No, good. In which case, we will say goodbye, sayonara, au revoir from the WP Built podcast, and we'll see you on the next one. I am Nathan Wrigley.
And I'm David Pumsley. Bye-bye.
Cheesy music coming in. Goodbye.